Listen to The Source, WOCA, each Thursday at 9 a.m. to Veterans News with Hank Whittier from Vets Helping Vets. You'll hear tributes, information on veterans issues, and stories that will make you laugh, cry, and feel proud. Veterans News always focuses on the military, past and present, and on our first responders. Veterans News is brought to you each week by Bob Wine's Camellia Gardens and Nursery, keeping you blooming since 1952.
The City of Ocala Department of Recreation and Parks are proud to present the 33rd Annual Light Up Ocala on November 19th. The fun starts on the square in downtown Ocala from 4 to 9 p.m. There will be food vendors, 3 stages of entertainment, Whoville themed kids zone, the downtown holiday skating rink, crafts, the Junior Sunshine Christmas Parade around the downtown square, and then at about 7:30 p.m. the official downtown lighting ceremony. See you at Light Up Ocala.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
"25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Thursday morning. A few weeks ago, there was a news item regarding an announcement from Elon Musk regarding a plan to send some people to Mars, and it sounded like it was going to be an attempt to colonize the planet Mars. And gosh, we joked about it a lot because I don't remember seeing any water in any of those pictures, and it's kind of hard to imagine that we would send somebody someplace that they could never come back from, is what this sounded like, that had no water. But then what do I know, huh? Let's talk about this a little bit. Joel Achenbach is on the phone. Actually, I think it says here he's a native of Gainesville. He's a journalist, a contributor to the Washington Post, Outlook. He's a syndicated columnist who wrote the column Why Things Are and Rough Draft. And we're talking today about the National Geographic November 2016 cover story, Elon Musk Wants to Go to Mars, and which is the article written by Joel, by the way, and also a 6-part global event television series premiering on the National Geographic Channel on November 14th at 9 p.m. Mars is what it's called, and the executive producer is Ron Howard and Brian Grazer of Imagine Entertainment. So a lot of things to talk about regarding Mars right now. Joel Achenbach, I hope you can hear me. I know there was some problems earlier. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I can hear you fine. Oh. Yes, and I am from Gainesville. I'm a Gainesville boy, born and raised in Gainesville.
All right. Where are you now?
Washington, D.C. I've been a reporter at the Post up here for 26 years.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for what you do. So what was your thought when you first heard about this announcement that there was going to be an attempt to colonize Mars with like 100 people?
Well, before we colonize Mars, we'd have to figure out a way to land a single human being there. So Elon Musk's vision is 1 million people, a thriving civilization on Mars. I don't think that's plausible in the next few decades. I think that's, or even in the next 100 years. I think that's a heavy lift. But NASA wants to go to Mars. SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, wants to go to Mars. It is the obvious place to go. And I did all this reporting for this story, and the thing I learned is that there's no one reason why you couldn't do it. There's no single technological reason. You could go with more or less current technology, but it's hard, and there's 1 million things that can go wrong. There's 1 million problems that have to be solved, like life support. Landing a heavy payload on Mars is difficult. How are you going to keep people alive there? How do you build life support equipment that won't break? You've got the psychological factors of the long journey. You're confined in a spacecraft. You can't see the Earth. Crew goes crazy. It turns into a science fiction movie, right? I mean, it's just a lot of things can go wrong. So it's a challenge, not impossible.
Okay. So the article, does the article talk about the statements, at least from Elon Musk, that are, I guess, the plausible part? Because, when we read National Geographic, we want to hear positive things. We want to read, oh, yeah, we're going to go to Mars, and here's when it'll happen and how it'll happen and all of that. Did you approach it that way, or did you approach it from... Well, how did you approach it, I guess?
I'm an old school newspaper reporter. I'm sort of just the facts, play it right down the middle of the fairway, and I don't have an agenda here. I'm not pro-Mars or anti-Mars. I guess in general I find the space program interesting and kind of fascinating and cool, and I love space science, and I admire the engineers who get this stuff accomplished. They build a space station, which is, I think, a really great achievement. So I admire that, but I'm not pushing as an advocate the idea of going to Mars. I'm trying to be the truth squad here and to say, okay, so you have the dreamers over here, you've got the bureaucrats over here, you've got the people looking at the budgets. What's realistic? Politically, budgetarily, technologically, scientifically, what can you do? And I would say collectively, my bottom line is Mars is really hard and a lot harder than the visionaries and dreamers say it is, but it's not impossible. And when you talk about the human future, it's always, it's who knows what might happen. I think, but in doing my reporting, you have sort of a couple different extremes. You have the SpaceX Elon Musk vision, which is 100 people per spaceship, giant spaceships, thousands of them going every couple of years. This is what he announced just recently in Mexico. It's a vision that will inspire a lot of people who are into this Mars concept, but most people I know in the business would say it's overly ambitious and his timeline is not plausible. But he wants to do it. Meanwhile, you have NASA, which is a much more bureaucratic, incremental, let's go slowly but sustainably. Their plan is to send humans to Mars in the 2030s, but if you press them, they will admit they're not talking about landing, they're talking about orbiting Mars and bringing them back. I think that is a doable plan. I don't think politically it would get a ton of support, because people would say, well, why would you fly all the way to Mars and then fly back without landing?
Right. That's the only question I think that will change public support or public those opposed to it. Opposition, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. Is why? I mean, what's the reason for going other than because it's there? That doesn't seem like enough of a reason. Yeah.
Actually, because it's there has been a persuasive reason for people historically when it comes to exploration. Why do you climb Mount Everest? Wasn't it Mallory who said because it's there or something like that? Mars is there. It's just sitting there. For a lot of people, it's a very inviting and intriguing target. So if you could build a scientific case for doing it, I think one reason people want to do it in this aerospace industry is it would funnel a lot of money to companies that are situated in certain congressional districts. That's $100 billion plus is going to be given to private mission. So that's another incentive. But no, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. The why part of it, why do this, is that gets into a political realm and a kind of a philosophical realm. I'll tell you what.
But in the question of how will it benefit humanity, that's one answer to the why. How would it benefit Elon Musk or a corporation? That's another answer to the why that may not be as palatable as how would it help humanity. But why did we stop going to the moon? Why did that stop and we're going to Mars when we never really, we went to the moon, so we did that, but we didn't really benefit from it other than the developments that came out of the need to know how to do it. Like we always point to Velcro, for example, but there's like 100 or 1,000 things that came out of that program. But as far as specifically benefiting from the moon, I don't think we benefited at all.
That's a great point, and I've never fully delved into the pros and cons of it. Why we went. We went because we were in a Cold War with Russia. The Soviet Union. The Soviets wanted to go. They had a moon program. Someone was going to get there first, and it was a big bragging rights issue. I think people can make a case, and I think it's a pretty solid case that when you try to do something hard, and now I'm channeling John F. Kennedy, when you try to do something that's really hard, it strengthens your technological and scientific and industrial sword. You sharpen the saw there a little bit. So
did Elon Musk hint that we needed to do this because our own planet was going to be so bad we'd all go extinct, so we have to start colonizing another place. Was that part of his reasoning?
Yeah, yes. It's just this Plan B concept. I do not find that to be a very good argument. I mean, the problem with that is that it kind of presupposes that if we could live on Mars, even if something bad happened to Earth, humans survive and it's not the end of the world. But I mean, Earth is more than just human beings. It's a whole biosphere. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. I look at Mars and I see a place that doesn't have water, doesn't have life, it doesn't have doesn't have a biosphere. So I don't know. I find the Plan B thing not his best argument in the very long term. Who knows what's going to happen to human beings?
And the argument I guess you could make is, well, if you could live in the Sahara Desert, that would be a pretty good accomplishment too. And there is a biosphere there, but most people can't survive there.
Yeah, there are people who are in Antarctica right now, but that's because there are scientists stationed there doing research. There are no residential communities in Antarctica. There are no houses for sale, to my knowledge, in Antarctica.
Interesting. I mean, I love space. I love it. I love seeing pictures. I love that little rover that goes around, and I love it when the people on Facebook say, "Hey, look, they found a face, or they found a monk, or they found a mermaid, or whatever."
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's kind of kooky, but it's fun stuff, So tell me about the TV series, the special that Ron Howard is doing.
Well, that's above my pay grade. I mean, the TV series is independent from the story I wrote, although they're tied together. I mean, you're correct; they're tied together. I mean, National Geographic has this 6-part Mars series that's a docudrama, and I'm familiar with it, though I didn't work on it directly. I'm familiar with the concept behind it, which I think it's set in the 2060s. So it's set, 40, 50 years in the future, and it shows how you could go. They did a lot of scientific research, and so it has actors acting out the fictional part of it. But they also have lots of interviews with people like Elon Musk and others talking about what they want to do. So I think it's going to be a big deal show. Yeah. And my story is timed to run coincident with that, and maybe after the election, people will actually turn to something else to focus on, and maybe they'll be interested in going to another planet. Could be an overreaction, but so this is a big deal thing for National Geographic, and that's why it's the cover story in the November issue. And I've covered space for a long time, off and on. Even since I was at the Miami Herald back in the 1980s when I got out of college, and I started writing about space after the Challenger disaster. So this is a long-term kind of interest of mine.
This seems like the premise for the film Gattaca. That was 15 years ago, where people were working to just go into this spacecraft to colonize other planets, and they had 100 people at a time going in the spacecraft being selected.
I don't think I ever saw Gattaca. Did the crew turn on one another, and were there hijinks and mayhem and chaos?
No. This was more of a down to earth story, and the workings about how they would get to the point where they would take off. It wasn't any of those in flight, in space type of conflict things.
Yeah, one of the things I did for this story is I interviewed psychologists who they take people and they put them in these confined spaces. There's one at the Johnson Space Center. It's like a 2-story house sized module. It's a closed space, and they put them in for a month, and they watch them with remote-controlled cameras and observe how these 4 crew members deal with each other in these confined spaces. And there's another one out in Hawaii that was a year-long confinement, because a lot of my story is about the psychological human factors of spaceflight. People think, wow, it'd be so great to be zooming around in space, and you can see the stars, you can see the planets. In fact, it can be really difficult to be separated from your friends, your family, your home.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
the people I talked to said, when you're in space, you spend a lot of time looking out the window at the Earth. And that's a really important connection.
Yeah.
Hey, there's my hometown.
Right. Yeah, I think I'd be doing that all the time. Why did I choose to do this? Oh, wow.
Throughout your years of writing about space, when you had the opportunity to speak to the astronauts one-on-one, I mean, people of James Lovell's caliber and everything, how did they view the future?
Well, the astronauts are amazing people. They're like super. I don't mean to idolize them, but they tend to be smart. They're flexible. I remember I was at NASA Johnson in Houston, and they were going to do some kind of exercise in the big pool. That is giant swimming pool. I mean, it's an enormous swimming pool, and down in the pool is a mock-up of the space station, and that's where they practice their spacewalks, right? And I remember it took over an hour for these astronauts just to get their spacesuits on. It was like 4 or 5 people buckling them into these spacesuits, and they were just sort of smiling and joking the whole time. They're incredibly patient people. And then they get dunked in the water. There's more fiddling around with all their gear because if it's not just right, they can easily drown.
Yeah.
And talking to them, these are super competent people. They're psychologically, they tend to be really resilient, and that's what you need. So for a Mars mission, you need people who can be chilled out for months at a time, really low gear, just entertain themselves on this long trip to Mars. And then when they get there, they'll be probably nauseous and disoriented, but they've got to then spring into action and do lots of really difficult things under high pressure and high visibility. So you need a certain personality type. But to answer your question, the one thing that they did tell me is, at least one of the people at Johnson, is they would like to see a mission that had some mechanism of artificial gravity where you'd spin the spaceship so that you wouldn't have weightlessness, because that weightlessness is a problem. The human body is not meant to be in zero gravity. Things go haywire when you don't have any gravity.
Well, you see the guys who've been up in the space station for a while. They're usually in wheelchairs when they first get off of when they first come back to Earth.
Oh yeah, they can't.
Right.
It's really hard to walk, and not only that, your bones deteriorate. You have bone loss. When there's no gravity field, I don't know why that happens, but it's about 1% bone loss per month. I mean, it can be really, really drastic unless you do tons of exercise. Plus, they have vision problems. Their heads filled with fluid. Your brain. One of the really cool things I learned was, and you wouldn't think about this, but we get a lot of input about the world around us from the bottoms of our feet. When we're walking around, our brain is picking up data that it picks up from the soles of our feet.
Really?
Right? So you go into space, and that part of your brain is going, I'm not getting any data from the feet.
Oh, wow.
Right?
I never knew that.
I never knew that either. I mean, I don't know how much of your brain is devoted to that, but yeah, you pick up information about the world, through these subtle physical things that no longer exist when you're in space.
Wow.
Joel, I know you're doing a lot of these interviews. What an honor to have you on the show. We've got to wrap it up like a minute and a half, but I wanted to squeeze in one quick question. When you spoke to the people to do the research for the article, under the premise that we're going to Mars because the Earth is not going to be livable, and therefore Mars is Plan B, did any of them discuss like Europa or some of them? Because we always hear like there's a moon around Jupiter that is probably more Earth-like than Mars. Mm-hmm. Did anybody talk about that as a Plan B?
No, I haven't heard that. I mean, I think Europa is. I think it's in a really harsh radiation environment with Jupiter, if I'm not mistaken, and there is liquid water probably underneath the surface, but it's a frozen snowball. It's a big ice ball there. I don't think that's.
Oh, that's not a good Plan B.
Mars is clearly the most inviting place where humans could potentially expand.
Wow. I'm looking forward to seeing the article.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a complete wet blanket about it, because even though I'm saying, well, this has got to be done, I think the future, belongs to the young people who make it, and if they decide this is what we're going to do, there's no single reason they can't do it.
Joel, I know you've got a hard out in 15 minutes, so we've got to say goodbye. Thank you for being on the air. The website is nationalgeographic.com. Just that?
Yes. Yep. Check it out.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joel. We will take a little break and we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Thursday, a mix of clouds and sun. There can be a shower in spots along the coast during the morning hours, the high 80 to 84. Clear to partly cloudy Thursday night, low 60 inland, 66 on the coast. On Friday, intervals of clouds and sun with a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon, the high 81 to 85. Saturday, partly sunny and breezy. There may be a shower, high 77 to 81. From the